What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Roof.
Welcome to Couch in the Roof, presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar, just north of Frandor on East Saginaw and Lansing, near the Lansing-East Lansing border. Was there last night for a beer. Always a fantastic experience. Great television setup. Cask and Company, just a fantastic date night. If you know how we feel about the place. Our original sponsor, the OG of sponsors, so to speak, for Couch in the Roof. Jason's already laughing. How you doing, brother?
What's up, buddy?
How many times do I say OG in an intro? Not a lot. It doesn't sound right coming from me.
Yeah, it does sound kind of weird.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
The OGs. Are we cool enough to say that?
No, not
I
at all.
We're out of our prime, so
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I have a quick question before we get started. As I drive in here, nothing bothers me more than people that drive 20 miles per hour under the speed limit on the highway. I just have a question. Maybe someone that is listening to the show out there, they do 20 miles under the speed limit and can tell me why they do it. Do you enjoy being in the car longer? Is it a safety issue for you? Are you scared to drive?
Were they old? Did you look?
There was one old person. There was one older person, and then there was one younger person on the highway on 127 coming on the way here. I'm just asking. I'm just saying it's and do cops pull over slow drivers? Because I feel it's scarier to see someone doing 20 under when you're coming down the highway at 75.
It is more dangerous in some ways. I will say we're all going to be in that stage someday where our nerves are a little frayed.
Never.
And we want to go a little slower.
What?
And maybe you got a little young child in the car if you're the younger person or something. But otherwise,
the
it's
speed
stupid.
limit, though. I don't see myself getting older and not knowing what the speed limit. Like if I'm 65, I still want to get somewhere, right? Like I guess if I get to that age, hopefully if I get to that age, maybe I just don't see myself doing it, right? Like I don't like being in the car. The whole point is get in, get to where you have to be, and then that's it. I mean, there are certain occasions in the fall when you drive around, like,
foliage.
Look at the foliage like Couch does and he loves. But
I love foliage.
And I can understand that, but all I ask, I'm not saying you have to do 20 over the speed limit. I'm just asking.
Groovy donuts, cider, and foliage. That's all I want.
71 miles an hour?
Little muskox flannel, be all set.
OGs, the OG sponsors.
There's a lot of stuff going on today to get into. Now, I think this is going to be a fun show. We are going to have Evan Petzold from the Detroit Free Press, covers the Detroit Tigers, on with us in a bit. Talk about the Tigers trade deadline and whatever the hell that was, and just sort of the frustration with it. And I have my own thoughts, and we'll get into those in a little bit, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
And we're going to have Harry on in a little bit, and some of the bets we're looking at, some early college football, some soccer I have for you.
And of course, Harry, in his travels, told me that he was not allowed into the casino in Amsterdam because he was wearing sweatpants.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was accompanied by a shirt with a couple holes in it, because that's how Harry rolls.
That's hilarious.
I know.
That's very Harry.
His life is unbelievable. No. I want to get to the bottom of this Ken thing, but, I can understand. I mean, if anything happens to Harry, I think I could step in pretty easily.
So a lot has happened in the last couple days, and today was a weird day because I thought originally, I'm like, all I'm going to want to talk about is what's going on with the Detroit Tigers. And yet there are some other things that I think we should get to. And so let's save our Tigers for our reaction to Evan.
I can't wait.
There are a couple other things that have happened before we get to Big Ten realignment, which is a story that sort of broke in the middle of the day. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports, an exploratory committee of school presidents of sorts, looking at the possibility of adding Oregon, Washington, maybe Stanford and Cal, if the Pac-12 implodes. And then the other thing that was, since we last convened, is the Women's World Cup. And I think I told you I was going to try and get up at 3 a.m. and watch this.
How did that go?
It did not go well. At 3 a.m., I'm like, I don't want to do this. I set my alarm, went off in my ears and my AirPods, whatever, and then so I did the thing I have not done in 20 years. I went downstairs without seeing the score, got some coffee, put the game on that I DVR'd, and began to watch it, not knowing what's going to happen. I got frustrated by them, and I started fast-forwarding, and I ended up watching a 95-minute game in 25 minutes, and I'm glad I did.
It's probably the way to do soccer.
I was just annoyed. Well, soccer, I don't think so. I enjoy the game, but just knowing it was over, being annoyed with how they were playing and wanting to see the result.
Can we go back real quick? Did you sleep with your AirPods in, though?
Not
or you
usually.
did just because the alarm, you didn't want to wake up the missus?
I didn't want to wake up Elizabeth. And she specifically told me, do not wake me up at 3 a.m. for the soccer game. So I was like, I'll put the AirPods in, and that'll work. And it was
surprised
fine.
you just didn't sleep through it just to not wake anyone up. But my question is, though, I saw that there was a little problem. People had a problem. Carly Lloyd that played on the past two World Cup teams was kind of pissed. And I understand. I know soccer is different with the 0-0, the 0-0 tie and all that shit. But I couldn't imagine like a game. I'm watching a game and it's a tie and watching the people celebrate, the players celebrate after.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great look. I mean, I was more annoyed because I thought, most of America got up at 3 a.m. to watch you guys. You played horribly, and you're celebrating because you got through. And they ultimately did get through. They're in the knockout stage. I do think they'll lose to Sweden on Sunday morning at 5 a.m. our time. But, and she took some flack for her remarks. You know what I like? I like when former players who are broadcasters actually say something.
Right.
And so I don't mind it. You can disagree with her, but she has the cachet of being part of that team. And she is, some people say she has an axe to grind and whatever, but
do you need cachet, though, to rip that? I mean, even if you follow the sport of soccer, you're just kind of like, you guys are lucky that hit the goalpost, that one shot that I saw.
But when it comes from Alexi Lalas or a man especially about criticizing the way the women behave after a game or something like that, or with their focus or other things like that, it comes across a little misogynistic, even if it's not intended to be that way. So I was happy it was, and with Alexi, I never really know, but with Carly Lloyd, I was happy it came from her. I listened to another podcast today. Oh, shit. Hold on. Give me this. Give me some Hoff. I got to look this up. Oh, yeah. So it's called After the Whistle, and it's got Brendan Hunt, who was Coach Beard on Ted Lasso, and Rebecca Lowe, who does the pre and post stuff for NBC Sports Premier League. They do a podcast, and they had Brandy Chastain on, and she was just as tough on them. Now, maybe not quite as suggestive of them being unfocused in certain ways, but I thought she was really good. I mean, she was really good, and they stunk, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being critical of a team that's not playing well. And the idea that they celebrated and they were jovial, I didn't have a huge problem with that, but because I don't know that it directly ties into their focus. I don't know that it ties into their preparation, and I don't think tying those two things together is really fair. I just don't think they're that good right now.
But if you have a battle with the opposing team and it's a 0-0 tie, but when you play so poorly, I just think I can understand people being frustrated with the way you're, I guess not celebrating, but all smiles. Like, do you really have to go over to the fans and be like, all bummed out? No. But do you really have to be laughing and giggling? I don't know. Maybe just go to the locker room and do it. It just rubs people, especially when you're asking the majority of your fans to wake up at 3 a.m.
There are ties that are wins and there are ties that are not. And there are ties that are ties and there are ties that are losses. What I mean by that is for Portugal, now Portugal, it wasn't really a win because they didn't get through. And if that last header that went off the post had gone in, that would have been, the U.S. would have been eliminated entirely. I think that was another reason people were annoyed. It's like, not only did you tie, but the last great scoring chance, the best scoring chance of the game, was an extra time, was the other team. You were a post away from being eliminated and going home. And so there may be some relief, but also, like, you played a team that is ranked way less than you, that you've beaten. I think that outscored like 38-0 in their last bunch of matches against, and you're happy with that. Like, that was the problem. It's partly the setup. Now, if you play, if the U.S. men play Argentina or Brazil and wind up 0-0, or play England and 0-0, that is a little more of a celebration. You've shown that you can compete and play with the best in the world. They're just in different places. So I didn't have a huge.
But it's like when I watch the Tigers and I see either Javi or Miggy, they make a dumb play and then they're chuckling it up with the guy on second base or first base. It's just kind of like, all right, it's just kind of annoying is all. Because you played poor. You've been playing poor.
Totally.
I'm talking about the Tigers. I mean, you guys can't play fundamental baseball a majority of the time, and then you guys are just laughing it up. I think it's because you and I are from the bad boy era, whereas you didn't want to watch anyone, even your own personal friend, win. Like you really wanted to win so bad back in the 90s and stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's read the room.
Different mindset.
Yeah, it's sort of read the room. Understand the circumstance. You aren't playing well, and it doesn't look great when you're celebrating, but
it's not the worst thing ever. But
definitely
it's
not.
just kind of like, all right, can you just go to the locker room and act like you're bummed?
This is the way it's going to be for a long time now. The rest of the world is sort of caught up, and so it's going to be like it is in the men's side for the best teams. The best teams in the world on the men's side don't win every year. Italy won the Euros and then didn't make the World Cup. Like that shit happens on the men's side, and that's going to start happening on the women's side as more and more teams have caught them where this is a real priority and they're putting resources in. And even countries that I thought were even further behind, like Colombia, has been fantastic. There are places like Nigeria has been good. Anyway, that's probably enough.
This is the most soccer I've ever talked.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm proud of you. I was almost like, oh my God, can we just keep this going?
It's an interesting story. I'm intrigued.
It is.
I do like the World Cup. Like I will not. There's no way I will wake up. But I remember 4 years ago, I think that when in the championship game, T and I took her son out and we watched the game. Like it's the World Cup final. Okay, we'll tune in. Right.
Yep.
Doesn't make me love soccer, but.
All right. The other big story of the day, as we mentioned, was the potential for more Big Ten for realignment in college football and more Big Ten expansion. And I have some feelings on this because I do not think that the Big Ten is acting here like it doesn't want to decimate according to the reporting, the Big Ten does not want to decimate the Pac-12. But if the Pac-12 were to further fall apart and the Arizonas or whatever go to the Big 12 and it can't be saved, they are considering, do they take Oregon and Washington and maybe Stanford and Cal? They're acting like they're the saviors or they're the good guys here. The Big Ten started this shit with the Pac-12, which is a storied league, which should always be better than the Big 12, which is like it's got better institutions academically. It's you want the West Coast to be strong in college athletics, and the Big Ten took the two LA schools. The Big Ten is a bully here. It is part of the problem. And as excited as I am, because I think it would be fun to have USC and UCLA in, I would rather the Pac-12 exist and those two schools not be in the Big Ten. I do not think it's good for college football if it's not a strong West Coast. I do not think it's good for college athletics if the Pac-12 doesn't exist. I do not have a whole lot of interest in eventually winding up with a couple power conferences or whatever the hell that is. I just don't. I won't find that intriguing. I won't want to be that much a part of it. I'll cover it. I'll fake it. It's the fucking job. I mean, I'll complain about it. I'll rip it. And then I'll cover it, and we'll cover Michigan State like we always do. But I'm not a.
So what are you so mad at then? You're mad at the Big Ten for being a bully.
I don't like the Big Ten acting like it might be a lifeline for a league, for schools in a league that it played a huge role in decimating. It's like, I just don't. It's like you dropped the bomb. And then you're going to act like you're the one that's saving the people from the fire. Like what are you doing?
What should they do though? Because the Pac-12, I mean, if that does happen, they're going to have like 6 teams left.
Well, so no,
should
they might
the
have
Big Ten
more.
say no, we don't want any of your teams, just to keep the Pac-12 alive.
So the Big Ten needs to think about this, and people need to have a better big picture thought on all this. If you add 4 more schools, and you can renegotiate the media rights deal, and those schools may not come in as full share partners like Maryland and Rutgers did. They may not get the full amount of money right away anyway. But if you add 4 schools without Fox and NBC and CBS upping the amount they're giving you, and every school is going to get a little less. So to me, it is not worth Oregon and Washington and Stanford and Cal if Michigan State all of a sudden doesn't have the volleyball practice facility they're hoping to build, or doesn't have whatever they want to put in place for students, isn't able to have a softball and baseball diamond facility situation where those fields aren't always underwater. Like the projects you want to build, the money that would matter from this, if that's less, and the things that go away, the things you need that help your student athletes aren't there because you got Oregon and Washington, who the hell cares? I think that is the question. Can you negotiate additional shares from the partners? Otherwise, it hurts everybody's bottom line. I mean, if it's like $70 million, say you wind up with that right now, that's what it winds up being. And I'm not sure what the total number is going to be exactly per year, per school for the media rights deal. And you had 4 more schools, you're looking at like something in the 50s. That's like you lose $12-15 million a year in revenue. That's a lot to lose. That's more than the difference between what the Pac-12 might get right now, what the Big 12 offers, and there are schools thinking about jumping over that amount of money. I just think some of these schools have it all wrong. Like, you have to have enough money to compete. But if you can compete, how much money do you really need, and where do you want to be that's best for you? And I know that sort of contradicts what I just said because, you know, is $55 million enough? Is $70 million? But what I mean, if you're Oregon or Washington, you're going to be a priority enough in the grand scheme of things. You're better off in terms of path to the playoff, in terms of all being out there in a 10-team Pac-10 or whatever it is than jumping ship. I mean, I think the Arizonas ought to stay. I don't think it's worth the Big 12 schools. You talk about academic institutions too. Just a lot of them lack relative to the Pac-12. I just don't.
Do you think a lot of athletic directors are panicking, though?
I think
not knowing what to do, because I feel like Oregon, they're kind of like their own brand, right? Like I don't think that they would have to beg anyone.
No, they wouldn't. It's not ADs, it's presidents, it's boards of trustees.
It's like the Pac-12 commissioners on there begging Apple for a TV deal. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, they misplayed this. They misplayed the timing of it. And it sucks. It sucks that this is the way it's all broken down. And when they took the LA schools, they should have found a way to keep USC and UCLA and do whatever it took to make them happy. They should have found a way, because nobody else was leaving the Pac-12 until then. Even if you gave bigger shares to the LA schools, whatever you had to do, Texas was making more than the other Big 12 forever. You know that they should have found ways to keep them. I wish they'd go back. I don't. The problem I also have if the Big 10 goes to 20 is it's 16, even with the 2 California schools, and it's not so big that you lose your entire sense of community or footprint, and it's not so big that you can't, like right now, you can play every school in football every other year. In a 2-year span, you play everybody. You get to 20, and you want protected rivals and stuff like that.
It just gets ridiculous.
You can't do it, right? It's just these super. I don't have any interest in the super leagues. I don't find that interesting. I wish it would go back to the way it was. It's not going to, but I think while money is important, money isn't everything. Fans and one thing. Well, one thing that Dan Wetzel, who wrote this story, I was listening to his podcast today, and he made a really good point, and he's made this before, and we'll try and get Dan on in the coming weeks. But it's not your money. The fans don't see this money. What you care is your team wins, that you have your rivalries, that you get to be competitive and compete for a playoff. You want what's best there. An extra $5-10 million and a TV rights deal, we get all caught up in that shit. But, is it worth it to have schools that don't make sense, to lose rivalries, to play teams you don't care about? I'm not saying some regular trips to Seattle to play Washington wouldn't be cool, or Oregon wouldn't be cool. I'm not saying Stanford wouldn't be a fun fit for the Big Ten in a lot of ways. You get to 20, it just gets unwieldy. And I don't know that it adds money right away. Like, I think they're at a point now, like, if you're not adding money, then what's the point? And now I understand that at some point when you renegotiate a deal 5 years from now, you may find it beneficial to have these schools, or 7 years from now, whenever the deal's up. I hope they stay where they are. I hope the Pac-12 finds its footing and stays put together. I hope nothing else moves.
But how is that going to happen?
Well, if
I know that you said money isn't.
If Arizona
shouldn't matter, but
yeah, if Arizona, the Arizona schools stay put, maybe Oregon and Washington for the time being stay put, and they do a 5-year deal. And I don't know that the Pac-12 is long for this world in certain ways, but it should be. The Pac-12 should have people want to watch it. The Pac-12 has time slots all to itself. It could have Friday night. It could have Saturday night. It can have all sorts of times that we want to watch football late at night, and it's only that offered. There should be a market for them that is interesting. They still have some good programs. Losing USC was freaking huge. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, I really hope that
it just seems no one has a plan though. Like add teams, but then what? Just have this super conference. It's just what worries me. And the Pac-12 commissioner going and begging for TV deals from other people.
Yeah,
just kind of wild.
No, it sucks, but it's going to be really interesting to see if this unfolds as quickly as USC and UCLA did, or if things do calm down, if this is truly an exploratory deal.
And it sucks because I just don't know where it's going. I mean, if they had a plan and said this is what we're going to try to do with these divisions or something, I'd be like, oh, okay. I'm open to change, but when you just have no idea and you're just letting it just fly down the highway with no one driving.
When I like the setup they have now, the setup they're going to in 2024. And if you add, like, if you're Michigan State, adding these schools does not help you ever make the playoff. You think adding Oregon and Washington to what you're already doing, like, is the Big Ten really going to have that many more places if they get to 20 in the college football playoff? Maybe at some point it's a regular 4 teams that get in the 12. If you're at 20, I don't know. Maybe it's still 3 most years. And if you're still guaranteeing conference champions, the 6 highest-rated conference champions get in. We'll see how long that sticks around. But it ain't the best path to the playoff. It's less money. It's more travel. I don't get the value for Michigan State and for schools like it to bring those teams in. If you're the Big Ten, you want to right now say, all right, we kind of screwed the Pac-12 here. How can we help them without screwing them over? And I don't know what that would look like. But I would, if I were the Big Ten, I would even look at, hey, we'll play these guys on their non-conference games, or I don't know, you got 2 schools out there already. We'll do something that helps boost their media rights platform to try and keep these teams together. You want the West Coast and Pac-12 to exist if you love college sports. You absolutely do. We're going to be interesting to see where this goes. Before we get to is the Terrell Henrys, it's the Antonio Gates Juniors, it's the young guys raising that ceiling. I also just got a text here from Evan. We'll talk some Tigers here before we get to him, because he's got to deal with a statement from Rodriguez's agent is about to drop a statement.
Ooh,
yeah. So we'll
wait.
We'll delay for a minute.
Eduardo Rodriguez agent says, I wonder.
Yeah, well, if you're
loves it in Detroit, or
if you're the beat guy, this is the world you live in.
No, I know, I totally get that.
He's driving home from Pittsburgh. You pull over and you got to deal with this. It's like if you cover recruiting, or you're a beat writer covering Michigan State. You're out to dinner. You're 2 seconds from proposing to your fiance, and some 16-year-old crackpot narrows his choices down from
crackpot.
I don't know. That's a mean term. I don't even know what that means. That's and
the sick dig there, OG.
Hindsight. That's inappropriate. I didn't mean it like that. Some 16-year-old nitwit narrows his choices from 17 to 10, and you gotta drop something out, and your girl's gotta wait. That's why those jobs aren't that fun. That sound horrible. I didn't mean it like that. It sounded like a good statement in my head, as I said.
It sounded good to me.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, all right. Let's talk a little Eduardo Rodriguez. Thanks.
Buenos tardes. It is time for the Detroit Tigers Gambling Update with Gramanito Couch and Jason Nick.
It's not really gambling. I just wanted to play that.
Yeah. So how pissed off for you or annoyed as a Tigers fan watching them not be able to unload Eduardo Rodriguez to the Dodgers because he didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
And it was one of his 10 teams in his no-trade clause, and they tried to do it anyway. And
why was he allowed to have 10 teams, by the way? My only concern with it was, did Scott Harris not know that the Dodgers were on his no trade? Right.
He knew.
So does Eduardo Rodriguez want to play here next year? Are we going to sign him to
That's
a
the question to me, because the problem is I think he's going to opt out, and I don't know that the Tigers want to pay $20 million a year if that's what he's going to get.
Why not?
And there's the question. So to me,
Lefty starter.
To me, this is where in a non-salary cap sport you can make up for this. There's no salary cap. Does not matter.
Yeah.
You can pay him $20 million. You didn't get prospects for him. You cannot let him walk. The way you make up for the mistake that was Al Avila and that contract initially is you make sure he's part of your roster. You sign him for another 3 years, and within those 3 years are probably the 3 years you're going to start being competitive. And you've got a guy who's a solid number 2 or 3 or whatever he is in your rotation who's been pretty durable for the most part. He's a good pitcher. He pitched well today at Pittsburgh. My issue is you don't do there are lots of no-trade clauses. Justin Verlander waived his to go to Houston, even when he was a little unsure whether he was going to do it. It happens all the time. And I think they thought he was going to be willing to go. And the Dodgers have a number of players who are his former teammates in Boston and other things. They thought he was going to be willing to do it. And I've seen all the reports that, his wife didn't want him to go to L.A., and, I don't know. He obviously left the team for months last year and for marital stuff. Look, I don't know any of that stuff.
And what the agent wasn't happy that he didn't get paid either last year. But what are you supposed to do when you just leave the team and don't tell anyone?
Yeah, and what I don't know is, right, they gave him this contract. And so the question is, and here's my problem with Al Avila on this. You're not going to be that competitive. You're not ready to compete for World Series stuff before his opt-out. So if you're going to give a guy an opt-out after 2 years, now he got signed after 2021, right, where the Tigers did think they were on their way up, and that was Al Avila, signing Jonathan Scope and trying to, anyway. So maybe they thought they were going to be
two big power moves that thought we were going to get over the hump with those.
Goodness. But anyway, signing him if they were a contender and you gave him the deal you did, it makes sense, some sense. It's fine. But when you know you're not a contender yet, there's a very good chance after 2 years or in that second year, when knowing he can opt out, you're going to want to shop him and maybe get value for him and trade him for prospects. Then you can't also have a really debilitating no trade clause penalty in there. Otherwise, just don't sign the guy. Just keep sucking. Find other ways. Use your, don't sign a guy again, there's no real penalty for it. There's no salary cap. Do what you want to do. But the way you make up for this is you keep him. If you get 3 more years out of Eduardo Rodriguez, if he really wants to be a Tiger, then fine. This is not that big a deal. I think it's just frustrating for people because the Tigers have not seemed to have done the trade deadline well ever. At least not in the 6 years. They get fleeced all the time, or they hang on to guys too long. There really isn't a prospect you can point to and go, boy, that really worked out. That guy developed. And I don't know what Boston had that they were going to, or the Dodgers had that they were going to give them, but it would have been
sure it was
fun
some
to
prospect.
See. Yeah, a couple prospects.
That was about 4 years away.
But still.
The thing that bothered me yesterday, I was watching Scott Harris. I believe he was on during the game, and he was saying, well, it's a great consolation prize that you get to see Eduardo Rodriguez pitch every 5 days. And I'm like, yeah, if we were contending, but if he's going to sit there and leave after the year and we couldn't get anything because he had a no-trade clause for 10 teams, we'll find another team, send him to Pittsburgh then. Fuck it. I mean, what do you, if you're not going to get anything, unless he tells you, and then you have to talk to the wife apparently too, do you guys want to be here? Because I would have just trade him anywhere if he's not coming back.
That's the thing. Do you have a backup plan?
But you're talking about
why don't you? Why didn't you?
But talking about $20 million a year as if that's going to break the bank for the you have to have those kind of guys. You have to have Eduardo Rodriguez's to win World Series. So as Tigers fans sit there and watch everybody go away all the time, the JD Martinez, the Castellanos, I'm like, you need players to get people in the fucking ballpark.
If
you
you
can't
want
sit there and cut costs.
If you're going to be a serious franchise, you re-sign this guy. And now I understand there's probably a total out there that you don't want to mess with, but to me, it's not about price as it is length of years. The pitcher, if you can get 3 years for him, and it's $20 million a year, $60 million for the next 3 years, because
But you don't want to be the Mets and have to pay $123 million, which is some teams' payrolls, to two guys that aren't even on your team anymore. I understand as an owner you don't want to do that.
You've been saving a lot of money the last 6 years. There ought to be
no one's asking you to do that.
There ought to be money in the bank to pay whatever you need to for a lot of these guys. To me, that's the way you make up for this. You have to have, and it doesn't have to be. Let's be honest. It doesn't have to be Rodriguez. If you spend $20-25 million on a different pitcher like him, that's okay too. What I'm saying is it's time to spend, and you have to make up for it. The only way that Scott Harris is going to get the trust and sort of hopes of and respect of fans back
is hire a general manager.
Well, but is also to have a big offseason. This has got to be an offseason where you and I, despite the heart of Spartan football and basketball and NFL, NBA, whatever it is, that you and I feel compelled to talk about the Tigers once in a while, that we have Twitter questions and hot takes about the Tigers once in a while because they're doing shit. Like when they signed Pudge in 2004, what a big deal that was. Even though it was middle of the winter or whenever it was, November, December, but I just remember being like, oh, smokes, I pay attention to the Tigers. Like, I'm going to read about this. I couldn't read enough. All of a sudden in the offseason, they need that. And they need to also, I think, keeping Rodriguez would show that they were serious about that a little bit, that they were serious about, making that move. And maybe he'll opt in. I just can't see it because he's pitching well enough that he's going to get more and he's going to want to see what's out there.
But if he has 10 teams that he doesn't really want to go to and the Tigers can offer him something, and by the way, he is kind of a head case who left the team last year. I don't know. I think people want him for a stretch run, but I don't know if they want him for 2 to 3 years.
And if his wife is really the one who's nervous about him being on the road and she's happy in Detroit and thinks she's got the situation right, maybe this works
Stay
out.
in Detroit where
to their
no women will
advantage.
come on to you as a professional athlete.
Yeah, to be honest, the whole thing is a little insulting to Detroit. That like in Detroit, it is no problem. But
I don't know. Is it though? He's turning down the Los Angeles Dodgers to stay with the Tigers who are not making the playoffs. I mean, that's pretty loyal. I don't know. I would love to find out what maybe maybe his agent will say something, but
maybe he wants to pitch in a low pressure situation where he puts up big numbers so he can get a big salary at the end of the year. Let's we're gonna get to Evan now. We will be back in a moment. Couch in the Rube, presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar in Lansing.
Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask and Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask and Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. If you're looking forward to cool summer nights at the lake or backyard gatherings, make Muskox's spring and summer flannel collection part of your summer experience. Muskox's lighter weight 3 seasons flannel is perfect for warmer weather without sacrificing Muskox's noted softness or high quality. Plus, Muskox donates 10% of every $100 purchased to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. Visit GoMuskox.com to find the absolute best flannel for you and use our promo code CAW15 for $15 off your flannel order. Trust us, you've never felt more comfortable than you will in a Muskox flannel. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite, Podcast Addict.
Couch in the Rube, presented by Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar. Pleased to be joined now by Evan Petzold, Tigers beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, who is having a busy day on his way back from Pittsburgh to Detroit. Evan, appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, as always. But, yeah, man, it's been a crazy 58 hours, finally getting back on the road and driving back to Detroit from Pittsburgh. So bear with me and anything you might hear in the background. Cruising down the highway is not always, the best for sound and stuff like that. But no, it's been wild. I mean, the Tigers obviously, they made one move, and we were expecting them to make as many as 4 moves, if not more. It was just a really shocking day for the Tigers on Tuesday with the trade deadline, and then everything that went down with Eduardo Rodriguez. Where do you want to start? I mean, it was bizarre.
Well, so first of all, if there are any drivers pissing you off on the road or anything, you can drop F-bombs on this podcast. So don't hold back. Just let it fly.
I'm a nice driver.
So yeah, yesterday afternoon, it seems like Rodriguez is going to be on the move, and then I think it was the Jeff Passan tweet that dropped. How stunned were you, and what was your sense of things right away?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised the Tigers weren't able to move him. I was surprised that the trade fell through. But at the same time, there was always kind of that feeling in my gut because I had knew that the Tigers, they pretty much eliminated a lot of teams that were interested in Eduardo Rodriguez because, he had this opt-out after the season. And basically the whole deal is if he pitches really well, he's going to opt out. If he gets hurt, he's going to opt into the contract. It's going to be a 3-year, $49 million that a team out there is going to have to pay. So think about a small market team like the Tampa Bay Rays who were interested in Erod. If he gets hurt, small market team, they don't want to pay that money. They don't want to pay, $49 million over 3 years. Even a team like the Orioles, they weren't so sure about doing that. The Cincinnati Reds, they didn't really like that idea. And so, if you were going to trade him to one of those teams, the prospect return wasn't going to be as great. So the Tigers, essentially, they went into the trade deadline saying, okay, our asking price is going to be sky high, and that's going to eliminate a ton of teams. It was basically the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Texas Rangers, from what I understand, and the Rangers, they go out and get Scherzer, and it's essentially Tigers-Dodgers trying to make a deal, and I wonder, man, what if Justin Verlander would have gone to the Dodgers? Then what would the Tigers have done? Because Verlander only went to the Astros because of Jim Crane's influence. So, again, I mean, they kind of put themselves with their backs against the wall and nowhere to go. It was basically Tigers-Dodgers the whole way. Once we got to, really when it started, right when the Max Scherzer deal went down, it kind of eliminated, the options considering the Tigers' sky-high asking price. So they put themselves in a little bit of a corner, I would say, and they didn't want to move him to a team that wasn't going to be willing to give a significant haul back. And then, a deal obviously comes to be, and there are a lot of details of that deal that, we don't know and that nobody knows yet. Whether that's, the Dodgers were going to pay Eduardo Rodriguez more money for him to promise an opt-out. I'm not so sure, but maybe that could have been the case. And somewhere along the way, Eduardo Rodriguez doesn't like the terms of the deal, and he decides, okay, I'm going to stay in Detroit. And then that happens in the final hour before the trade deadline. And the Tigers have nowhere to turn because they already eliminated all these teams by setting that price tag so high. So, I mean, in a way, I'm shocked, sure, but at the same time, it's what do you expect? You put your eggs in one basket, and it doesn't work out, you get burned.
So that's the question, I guess. Should have they had a backup plan? I mean, here's a guy who's probably going to opt out at the end of the year. I'll go here. What do you think the odds are that somehow he's a Detroit Tiger next year, be it opting in or that they re-sign him to a new deal?
Well, that's the thing, is that if he's going to opt in, 99% sure that the Tigers are going to have to give him an extension or rework the contract. I mean, we've seen, players that have been on the front free agency that they've signed for, 3-year deals, and the average annual value is through the roof. I mean, we saw that with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, where, we'll keep it to a 3-year deal, but we're going to pay you a ton to get you to come here. So, I don't know about extending the length of the contract. That could be one option. But another option would be, hey, we'll keep it at 3 years, and we're going to pay you a ton of more money. I don't see the Tigers doing that. I mean, look, a couple things you need to know about the Tigers is they have Casey Mize, they have Tarek Skubal, they have Matt Manning, they got Alex Faedo, they got Joey Wentz, they got Reese Olson, they have young pitchers, and they also have a pitching genius in Chris Fetter and an assistant pitching coach, Robin Lund, who just came to the team this year. I mean, this is a team that can develop pitchers, and we also know Scott Harris, with his track record, go look at what he did in Chicago with the Cubs, go look at what he did in San Francisco, and look at what he did with Michael Lorenzen, who he was able to flip to the Phillies at the trade deadline. I mean, he goes out, he gets a guy in a one-year deal, makes him better, and then is able to trade him. I mean, he can optimize guys, and he has a proven track record of optimizing pitchers. But what do the Tigers need? They need offense. They might need to spend for some offense. And so I just don't really see it being likely that the Tigers are going to be willing to say, all right, let's pay Eduardo Rodriguez a ton of money because, look, historically, Eduardo Rodriguez is not an ace. He's a number 2 or 3 starter. So, if anything, I think Eduardo Rodriguez is going to have to opt into the contract that he currently has, and I just don't see that happening because, he deserves to make more money based off of his performance. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, he has earned that to this point in the season. So, I don't see him opting in. I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't see the Tigers negotiating in that way.
Did Scott Harris then make a mistake in some ways by not having, even lowering his price and having more options? If you're going to lose the guy anyway in a season that's going to end in 70, 73 wins, then why not get a prospect that you're at least intrigued by, like you did with Michael Lorenzen, and something like that?
Well, that was the big question. It was like, and look, I don't think that they would have. I don't know what they would have gotten back. I don't know whether offers were on the table, but there were other teams with offers on the table. The Tigers just weren't even interested in entertaining those because, the value didn't line up with what they wanted. And so you can look at it one of two ways. I mean, you could look at, okay, Scott Harris played hardball and got burned in the process, had no backup plan, didn't trade Eduardo Rodriguez for anything, and, it seems like he's probably going to walk at the end of the year unless you restructure his contract. I mean, that's not a good scenario to be in. The flip side of it is like, I mean, I don't know, like, does he gain any credibility around the league for sticking to his guns and saying, hey, I'm not going to make a trade that I don't want to make? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we saw Al Avila make trades just because he knew he needed to move pieces and everybody else knew he needed to move a piece. And, maybe the return wasn't as good. Like, does this help Scott Harris in the future when maybe he's able to put himself in a situation where he has a little bit more leverage? I don't really know. You can definitely be frustrated with Scott Harris because he wasn't able to make a deal. I think Scott Harris is frustrated that he wasn't able to make a deal. I think there's no question about that because that was what they expected to do. They expected to come into the trade deadline, trade Eduardo Rodriguez, and trade Michael Lorenzen. Those are the two priorities, and they were only able to get one of those done. So I think it's up to fans to look at it however they want. I think you can, dive as deep into it and go down as many rabbit holes as you want to make yourself believe whatever you want. But I look at it both ways, and I guess we'll probably see how things turn out in the future. Like, I think, we'll see. We'll see if he can pull off deals in the future. We'll see if he makes smart free agent signings. But, you can definitely be frustrated because he wasn't able to make this trade that would have, boosted the farm system. But ultimately, it was Eduardo Rodriguez who said, no, I'm not going to LA for whatever reason.
I want to get you out of here quickly. Do you think that Scott Harris was surprised and thought this deal was going to work and that Eduardo Rodriguez surprised him by saying he wouldn't do it?
Certainly. I think both the Dodgers and the Tigers were surprised.
Yeah.
No question about it. I mean, again, you go through these processes, you have conversations with them. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez, talking to him today after his start, he even said, the Tigers talked to me about a couple teams, which we know one is the Dodgers, I'm assuming, based on conversations that I've had, that the other one was the Texas Rangers. And he said, like, they kept me in the loop. They talked to me, like, we had conversations. Ultimately, I decided to stay because, I didn't like the terms of the deal. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Tigers and Dodgers both worked really hard to try to make the deal possible. They tried to make it happen. They tried to make it fit, the contractual demands of Eduardo Rodriguez, and then, it doesn't happen, and everyone's pretty surprised. So, look, they wouldn't have put that much time into working on the deal if they didn't think it was going to go through. And Scott Harris has that 10-team no-trade list. He knows. It's not like he didn't check it, right? Like, he knew. But apparently through conversations, he was confident, and the Dodgers were confident, too, that they could pull it off, and it never happened. So And again, for people that want to be upset at Scott Harris, they want to be upset at Eduardo Rodriguez, that's up to you who you want to be upset at. I think there's plenty of blame to go around, though, regardless.
Evan, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking a few minutes on what's a frantic day for you, and hope to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks a ton. Appreciate it.
That is Evan Petzold from the Detroit Free Press. You can follow him on Twitter at Evan Petzold. Great follow. Former CMU chip, Fire Up Chips. And
great driver.
And great driver. Does not use the F-bomb when he's driving.
It's impossible.
Especially the Pittsburgh area with all those bridges and the yellow bridges, and you get confused. And one of the last times that I really melted down as an adult, like to the point that you're embarrassed, like a child, was I was at my sister's grad school graduation at the University of Maryland with my parents. And so you're already out there. I hadn't vacationed a lot as an adult with my parents. You're already a little, you know how it is with you when you're with your parents as an adult. There's some things that you do differently. You're a little frustrated by anyway. So we're driving back to Michigan, and I've got a softball game that night in Kalamazoo. You know how important softball is to me.
Very.
Especially when I was like 27, 28 years old. And the thing was, on this softball team in Kalamazoo, this co-ed softball team for the Kalamazoo Gazette, where I used to live, I was the shortstop. And this is the first year of the team. I knew I wasn't the best shortstop option. I knew it. I knew the second I missed a game, they would find a better shortstop, and I would be playing a different position. But I liked playing shortstop, so I wanted to be at the game. We go through Pittsburgh on the way back from D.C. or Maryland to College Park, and my mother wants to drive through the actual city because she wants to look at the bridges. So we do that. This is 2007. You don't have an iPhone with Waze and all those apps. We get turned around. We get lost. It's like an extra hour and a half getting through Pittsburgh. I'm late to the softball game in Kalamazoo. My buddy John Liberty's already at shortstop, diving all over the place, making plays like a minor leaguer, and I never played shortstop again. I got Wally pipped because of the bridges in Pittsburgh.
So you're blaming your mother.
Yeah. That is a story worth telling, by the way, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing, a fantastic place for brunch.
Impressive story.
Trivia Tuesdays or a date night on the weekends.
Evan made me feel better about
did he?
About things. Yeah, because, I mean, I wasn't mad at Scott Harris yesterday. I'm just like, obviously there has to be something. The only thing that pissed me off is like, every 5 days you get to see Eduardo. It's like, shut up. But, I can understand it. But it does make me think, though, like that was your only option, Eduardo. You were only in talks with the Dodgers. I understand that, but he pulled the rug underneath you at the last second.
Yeah.
And listen, I wouldn't offer him some crazy money just to stay here either. Because like Evan said, I mean, they have decent young pitching that could help next year. So you don't have to sit there and give Eduardo Rodriguez, $100 million for
It's the situation is just frustrating is what it is. It's frustrating because for once you had a trade piece that seemed like it had real value at a trade deadline, that it looked like you were going to get something for a guy who wasn't Verlander, was a good play, and it didn't happen at the last second.
It's frustrating because as a Detroit sports fan, we've been getting our dick kicked in for the past how many ever years, and we've had incompetent general managers for most of our favorite teams. So when we see incompetence, what we view as incompetence, saying that Eduardo Rodriguez withdrew his trade clause, or he invoked it or something, and you're just like, great, we're getting dicked again. Do any other teams that are, trying to contend or trying to get better for the next season doing things like that? I don't know.
It's incredibly frustrating, and I think there are lessons to be learned in the type of contracts you give out, and.
But I was saying, Evan was saying you can be mad at Harris,
right,
or the Dodgers, or at Mr. Ass. I mean, you have to be constantly mad at him. But I don't want to be mad at anyone for no reason. So let's just hear the facts, I guess.
The one thing I forgot to ask Evan is, I wish somebody had asked, and I think they did, and he didn't give a great answer. Eduardo, like, why? Why wouldn't you want to play for a contender for 2 months? And high-leverage situations and pitch in the postseason before you're a free agent. And I understand you want to ultimately live on the East Coast, or you want to be closer to family. Your family's happened here, and it's 2 months. I do think there's something family-related there. I do think, and I wouldn't be stunned if, like, the idea, his wife's like, I'm not going to let that guy be apart from us for 2 months. Like, I know that guy.
Well, then get divorced then.
Well, that
if you can't trust your husband,
that may be where they're headed. But when you got young kids, I think he's got young kids. I would
say, hey, young kids, guess what? Daddy's making millions throwing a baseball. You guys are going to move wherever I need you to move.
And this is why, again, we're thankful you didn't have children.
I wouldn't have, but you don't get that at all, though. I mean, a guy's making millions of dollars for his family, and you have the gall to sit there and go, we don't want to go to L.A. Like, he's only going to play for another 5 years, 6 years or something. You can't. You're making millions of dollars, man.
Yeah,
it blows my mind.
It's a weird situation, and it's a frustrating situation for the Tigers. And the worst part is it's just so Detroit Tigers.
See, I hate that.
So
I hate hearing that.
So, yeah,
and that's what bothers me is like, no one wants to come here.
Well,
and blah, blah, blah.
And the other problem is if he wants to be here, and you don't know how many players are going to want to be there. Although money talks. Again, not a salary cap sport.
Right.
You can say, well, they need to spend their money on hitting. Do both.
Yeah.
There is no fucking salary cap. Do both. You haven't been spending in a while. You have money. Do both. If you don't have the money, sell the team. This is not a sport where if you can't afford a $300 million payroll, you should ever own a team. Period. And all these small market teams who act like a lot of these owners are hanging on to money. Pittsburgh's got horrible ownership. It ain't that small a market,
And you do have to pay players. And I think players would love to be in Detroit. Like, listen, if you're winning in Detroit, there's no better fan base.
It's a great
We
fan
absolutely
base.
love you.
Great baseball fan base.
Right. That's why I don't know why we have to sit there and act as if we have to beg people to come to Detroit. It just annoys me.
If you want to watch the Tigers the rest of the season, I'm telling you, Front 43 and Cask and Company, great place to do it. You go there on a happy hour, watch an afternoon game on a Thursday, get pissed off, get drunk, enjoy it. Great beer selection, outstanding menu. I love their pad thai. I think it's one of the more underrated dishes, I think, and I don't know if it's properly rated. It's fantastic. The pad thai. They've got great burgers, flatbreads, just an incredible menu. And go to caskandcompany.com to check them out. They're just north of Frandor on East Saginaw and Lansing, near the Lansing-East Lansing border. Front 43 and Cask and Company right next to each other. Underrated patio. Just a great spot overall. Are we ready with Harry? Should we take a quick break, come back with Harry?
No, we're good. He's ready to go.
He's ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. It is time now to bring the great one, Harry Gagnon, as we make our picks, presented by our friends at Firekeepers and the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app.
Sorry.
Harry
music.
Yeah, no. Harry, of course, from bestbetcorner.com, extrapoints.com, and the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. Haven't talked to him in a while. Great to have you back on the show. Harry, how you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? Everything okay?
Everything is good. Yeah.
Are you wearing sweatpants right now? Because I know you got kicked out of an Amsterdam casino because you're wearing sweatpants.
Is that something? They wouldn't allow us. They wouldn't allow me and my buddy in because he was wearing sweatpants.
Oh, he was. I thought it was
you.
He
was. No, he was. Actually, I was. Actually, you know what? I was wearing sweatpants, but the guy hadn't gotten to me yet. So I just blame Ken. I blame my buddy Ken that why we weren't able to get in the casino.
Smart.
That seems
high maintenance in Amsterdam. Boy.
You wouldn't think it.
Yeah, it's like a strip club where they make you take your hat off. It's like to respect the ladies.
Yeah. Like, come on, man.
What other trouble did you get into in Amsterdam, sir?
You know what? Not too much other trouble. Everything was good. Germany was good. I was very impressed with Prague. Beautiful there, really beautiful. If you have a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. The sausages were delicious. I had plenty of that, and food was pretty good, and no real other trouble.
Who had the best weed?
Well, you know what? Where we went, you couldn't buy it, so we happened to have some with us. But you really couldn't buy it. So my buddy came from Spain he came from Spain, had some, but we we loaded up in Amsterdam and we drove all around.
That sounds
Great.
amazing.
What a life.
Yeah, no. I've never.
By the way, guys, I will be. Hey, Jason, if you haven't seen, I'm going to be next week, Wednesday and Friday. Springsteen back in the States. I'm going to Wrigley. So if you want to make the trip.
Yeah, man. Just tell Ken I need a ticket and a private plane to get there.
Right. Nice.
Or just tell your friend Bruce. He seems
That's true.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
No, I've never been to Amsterdam. Always wanted to go.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It seems like a good spot.
So, I will say this though, the just browsing, the red light district in Amsterdam, and then I went to the one in Hamburg. The one in Hamburg, just it blows the one in Amsterdam out of the water. Just letting you know.
So I've been to the one in Frankfurt, and what's interesting about the one in Frankfurt, I was there with Joe Rexroad and Diamond Leung, two guys who used to cover Michigan State, who some of our listeners will know. Matt Charbonneau slept through his alarm, and we didn't have cell phones. It's like 2012, right? So we couldn't. He missed the whole night. And one of our buddies, Joe, did not understand. You cannot take pictures of these things at these. They do not like that. So there's a big place called.
Yes, yeah, Graham. They do not like it. You are correct.
Not at all. So there's a big thing called the Sex Inn, and there are people going in and out, and there's a giant man who's armed and looks is protecting it on the front. And Joe's there like taking video and pictures, and this guy just starts coming. I'm like, Jesus, Joe, what is we got the hell out of there, and we wound up at the only place on the edge of the district that we thought was at all appropriate for three guys on a work trip.
That's tremendous.
To hang out at for all. It was a little much, but looked like an incredible time for some of the gentlemen there.
They don't like you taking pictures at strip clubs either, so that probably still plays.
Apparently, Joe did that at Solari's bachelor party, famously.
Wow.
Yeah, Joe has a problem.
Can't put that damn phone down.
Yeah, I don't. I think it also though. I would tell if I were Joe, I would tell his wife this. It speaks to the fact that he does not spend a lot of time at strip clubs or in brothels because he doesn't understand that you don't do that. So that actually could work to his advantage.
Now he knows the rules.
Yeah, I don't know if I was supposed to tell that story we're telling, presented by Midtown Brewing Company there. So Harry, I'm glad we are closing in on football season. It's been a long off season. Yeah. This is the best time to start picking games. We start looking at some of the lines we like, and that's look. A month from now, we'll have a weekly slate, and we'll just be diving in, and it'll be incredible. There are things though that you are starting to pay attention to, like you like Michigan's over 10.5 wins for their season win total, correct?
Yeah, over 10.5 minus 130. I know Harbaugh is suspended for those first 4 games, but those again, another season for Michigan, another season of a bunch of cupcakes to start the season. It's a cake non-conference schedule, which I'm going to get to in a second. But again, you got J.J. McCarthy, who's returning, and at quarterback, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards will be back for the Wolverines in the backfield. They combined for 25 rushing touchdowns. Again, like I mentioned, the schedule, they don't go on the road until the last day in September versus Nebraska, who has a new coach. And like I said, their first 4 in the Big House is East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. They play Purdue at home, who's got a new quarterback. They are at Penn State, but Penn State doesn't have Clifford anymore. You guys know they play Michigan State, obviously, but they were terrible last year, and they get Ohio State at home. So I think 10.5 is very doable. I think minus 130 is a great price there because they could run the table.
I don't think a lot of people who listen to this show are going to take your advice and take the Michigan over. There are a few. We have some Michigan fans who listen, but I just think it's going to be hard for I'm torn on the line because 10.5, like what I don't know yet is Michigan going to be consistent enough to do that? I do think they maybe have their best team.
Are you getting plus money on the over?
No, it's minus 130, right?
130.
Yeah, I don't know that I would.
No value.
I would go there. I mean, there are some. Yeah, there. I don't. Yeah, that's a really hard one. You are also off of Kirk Cousins and all aboard the Lions bandwagon. Is this correct?
It's a core foundation, man. Grit.
Welcome aboard, Harry.
I'll tell you. Listen, you know what? I'm jumping on with you. Listen, I'll tell you what. I was on Vision this morning. I'm always on Wednesdays with Michael Lombardi, ex-Cleveland Browns general manager. And we were discussing, he's asking me, he's like, if I've seen the lines for week 1, I said, I've dabbled, I've looked. He's like, is there anything that stands out to you? And I said, I know this sounds ridiculous, but because everybody seems to be like jumping on the Detroit Lions bandwagon. And whenever that happens, I hate it because something bad always seems to happen, but I'm not backing off. I'm staying on the Lions bandwagon. And in week 1, they are getting 7 points against Kansas City.
Oh, Jesus, Harry.
I think, well, here's the thing. I think that the NFL went way out on a limb to put the Detroit Lions, knowing what could happen in this game. What if it's 38-7 in the third? Everyone's going to turn it off. The ratings are going to be terrible. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh, we knew the Lions would stink." All this hype. I love Dan Campbell. I love what he's done. Jared Goff last second half of the season didn't have an interception. I'm big on Jahmyr Gibbs, the rookie running back, this season. I think he's going to have a big year, and I think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year 10-1. And the +7, Detroit hangs in this game. I even like money line. I'm telling you, no way are they going to allow Detroit get rolled on this game to put them in this spot. Detroit shows up.
I love your optimism. I wish I shared it.
Now we're doing conspiracy theories with the NFL that they want the Lions to win. Now I can't believe we're involved in this now. So fun.
And you got, Jay, you know more than anybody. My conspiracy theory is that the NFL fixes everything for Kansas City and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. But in this spot, they want. Of course, they want. Now that Brady's out, Mahomes is the face of the NFL. But it seems too easy to just be like, Kansas City's going to roll Detroit. I'm taking the Lions. I am going to even take money line.
And
I'll get screwed on the money line somehow by the referees at the end of the game, but I'll cover the 7.
And isn't the previous Super Bowl winner like really bad in their first game? They get the rings and everything, and don't they usually? Or is that the NBA? Anyway, I don't know, but I hope you're right.
Let's go, Lions. Let's go.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
Okay, you also think there's value on the Player of the Year being Hurts at 25-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's now we're talking Offensive Player of the Year, not a quarterback. And a lot of times, this award, Offensive Player of the Year, goes to a wide receiver, goes to a running back. But I think last year, Hurts, for all he did, he got hosed. He got hosed in the voting for everything. He didn't do anything wrong, and his MVP value went down when Mahomes has 3 picks against Denver in like week 14, but his value shot up. I just don't understand it. I think we're going to remember this as the season goes by. Hurts I don't think he can be denied again. He had 35 touchdowns, 13 rushing touchdowns, had over 50 yards a game rushing. The guy played rushing and passing over 600 plays last year. He had 6 total turnovers. Now McCaffrey and Chase are 11-1 as the favorites. Justin Jefferson's 12-1. But I think Hurts at 25-1 is value. And I mentioned, guys, Gibbs, Lions rookie, for Offensive Rookie of the Year at 10-1. I think the offense is ready to roll. They were fantastic the second half of the season last year. 3rd in scoring in the NFC last year. Look, they said goodbye to DeAndre Swift, who a couple of years ago coming out of Georgia was a stud. Just said goodbye to him. And also Williams is gone into 17 touchdowns from last year. He's a Saint now. It's going to be Gibbs' show. I think listen, Montgomery's going to get plenty of the touches inside the tackles, but I think the big plays go to Gibbs. I think he has a big season. Rookie out of Alabama. Did average 6 yards a carry for the Crimson Tide last year, but even more than that, he was 3rd in the team in receiving. He had 44 receptions. He can catch the ball. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a huge game in week 1 and a huge season for the Lions.
Jalen Hurts number is kind of wild.
That is
good value.
Yeah, right, and I actually like the Gibbs 10-1. That's not a bad play. I mean, that's not a bad. Like, you think about this: if you're a Lions fan, like if you just put $10 on the guy and he wins it, it's $100 at the end of the year. It's just and
something. Goodell wants us to win, so
yeah, apparently that.
Plus, you guys are Lions fans. You follow the NFC North. You've seen the million Bears games. I think it was a nice pickup for what they lost into getting Montgomery. But Montgomery just doesn't it seem like every carry he rushes for is for 2.5 yards? He never bounces it out to the outside. He never has big rushes. He can get them short yards inside. But I think it's Gibbs as the season progresses. Gibbs is going to be getting the ball more and more.
All right. Jason, what early on are you looking at that you like?
Well,
here?
Boys, August means I got to start doing some research and cracking some books. But I have a couple that I'm really my gut feel is on. But 2, I want your guys' input on. Penn State 9.5, the win total. I gotta say, I know it's James Franklin, but 9 and a hook.
I'm on the over too.
I'm on the over. It's minus 130. It's not bad juice.
Yep.
I know James Franklin gets a lot of shit, but Drew Aller, I think that it's all up to Aller, though. I mean, if Aller comes in and he's even halfway decent, I think they have enough coming back there. Matt Rule, I mean, he did it at Temple and Baylor, and I know the first seasons there, he god-awful and terrible. But with the transfer portal, I think Matt Rule could, what's their 6 or it's 6.5 in some books for Nebraska. I think Nebraska can win 7 games looking at their schedule. September 9th, boys, at Colorado, I think that'll be the kind of, I think if they win that game, it's kind of a lock that they can win 7 games. Alabama, the over-under, 10.5. Now, it's plus money. The over was plus 145 in some books that I looked at. The under's minus 155. So that was kind of curious to me there. And UNLV, I love betting the Mountain West, boys. I really do. Because
you're a Wyoming guy. You love Wyoming.
I'm not a Wyoming guy. Our friend Cody Tucker is. I've been there. I do. I love Wyoming.
You like them. Don't try. Yeah, you like them.
Yeah, I do. I do root for them, but it's gambling.
Yeah.
So UNLV has had just one winning season since 2001. Their over/under is 6 right now. I don't know much about UNLV as we speak, but that thing that UNLV has had one winning season since 2001. Kind of shocked.
Yeah.
It does seem like a reason to sprinkle on the under. Just a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you on Penn State. There are a few futures that I'm kind of in. I like Iowa plus 240 to win the Big Ten West division. I think that's pretty good value because I think it is going to come down to them in Wisconsin, and I think it's pretty much a toss-up. In Wisconsin, it's like plus 110. I think the value is on Iowa. That is one of the things I'm looking at.
Graham Hurts is gone now, so you got a new quarterback there at Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, they're going to be they're going to play a wide open spread. We'll see how it fits. The wide open offense with a roster that was recruited mostly to play the same football they played at Wisconsin for 30 years. I'm a little skeptical, but I do think they've got a good coaching staff and they'll be all right. The other things that I really like right now, and this is much sooner than futures. You follow the Leagues Cup at all? MLS versus Liga MX, Harry, in soccer?
I have. I have. I've been following a little bit more lately because I've been a lot of my video picks in the when there's a short day in baseball or early games. A lot of times I've been going to the MLS.
Yeah. So like the Leagues Cup, the beauty of this is if you really understand which Mexican teams are just too much for the MLS to handle, there's money to be made, and because the games are being played in MLS stadiums and so much juice goes to the home team, there's great value. So like next week, for example, and there are bad teams in Liga MX, and most of them have been eliminated, but the top teams, and what I mean by this is like next week you get the Chicago Fire on this Friday night, hosting Club America. And Club America is plus 115 on the money line. Now, they got to win for you to cash that. They are a lot better than Chicago Fire. That is a really, really good Liga MX team, and I know that's being played in the Chicago Burbs. I know, whatever, but that will be that crowd will be, half rooting for Club America. I'm telling you, that is great value there. I also like Monterey plus 110 against a weak Portland Timbers team on Friday at 10 p.m. Friday. I am going to give my wife a couple sleeping pills about 8 p.m. I am settling in for the League's Cup all night with Chicago Fire, Club America, and Monterey and the Portland Timbers.
I hear you. The Timbers have no offense. They can't score.
They're awful.
They can't score.
Monterey's really good. And then the nightcap, 10:30 at plus 125.
That's sick. I know that.
The Tigres are playing the Whitecap, Vancouver Whitecaps. I'm all on the Tigres plus 125. There are parlays to be had. There are individual things to be had. There's live lines to be had. Club America, Monterey, and the Tigres, 3 games, all on Friday night. It is whatever you do on Friday night, cancel it. There's money to be made.
I got to tell you, Graham, you're going to be a little jealous, I think, because when last week when we were flying back, had to wait 2.5 hours on the runway because of storms in Munich. But we were flying into Boston, flew into Boston, finally made it after 10 hours. All for whatever reason, downtown Boston, every hotel was like $700, $800 for some reason. So we took an Uber out to where the Gillette Stadium is in Foxborough, and we stayed right next to the stadium where that next day the New England Revolution was playing San Luis of the Mexican League.
Yeah.
They were in our hotel, the guys from
beautiful.
San Luis. In our hotel. I was shooting the breeze, talking gambling with these guys.
Great.
With 10 different guys. I took a couple pictures with the team. They were talking gambling, and I was making up stuff, telling them, "Listen, guys, I'm gonna tell me. Are you guys gonna be able to hang in this? I'm gonna bet that you score at least one goal." They guaranteed me they would score at least one goal. I did have my buddy put it in for me. I did take New England straight, and I had them both teams to score. Final was 5-1 New England, so I actually made a little.
Well played. Yeah, they're not one of the top Liga MX teams. That's really what you have to realize. Like, once you get beyond the top, say, 4 or 5 clubs in terms of spending, it's the leagues are even. But the depth of those top teams in Liga MX is just too much for MLS, and the lines are starting to catch up. There was real value early on, but there's still value to be had in those Leagues Cup matchups. It's fantastic stuff. I might even get Jason to watch it.
Say what?
No, maybe not.
What are you guys talking about?
Toned out completely.
Graham, I'm actually sending you a picture right now of me and one of the players. It's great. Gomez. Gomez on the San Luis team. Hilarious.
I appreciate it, Harry. It is good. It is good to hear your voice again. Looking forward to doing this more regularly and starting to talk football as we get closer. And glad you're doing well. And enjoy Bruce at Wrigley. That sounds. I'm envious.
Sounds
that sounds amazing.
Definitely. And listen, anytime you guys need me, I want me on the show. I can't wait. Let's talk football. Let's do it.
Look forward to it. That is the great Harry Gagnon from Against All Odds with Cousin Sal, bestbetcorner.com and extrapoints.com. Man, what a life. What a life that guy leads. We appreciate Harry, of course. We appreciate Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Press. Continue to read his coverage of what's going on with the Tigers and Eduardo Rodriguez. We appreciate Front 43 and Cask & Company. Go to caskandcompany.com to check out their menu. Just a great place to swing by and chill and have a beer and date night. It's where I go with my rec league softball and soccer teams every single week. We have an outstanding time. They take care of us. We do a reservation online just a couple hours before the game. They've got a table ready for us. It's just fantastic at caskandcompany.com. We'll be back probably Friday afternoon. We'll figure that out, do some Twitter questions, talk Michigan State football after the first practice, which opens Thursday. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Roof.